You're watching BCTV. We're all about Brantford. You're watching BCTV, Brantford Government Television, a service of Brantford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Brantford.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the RTM to order. Just a reminder, when speaking on your mic, push the button to make sure the green light is on. The RTM will be convened on Wednesday, March 9th, 2022 at 8 p.m. at the Brantford Fire Headquarters, 45 North Main Street, to consider and act upon the following matters. Will everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Representative Everson?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would ask that we have a moment of silence for the war in Ukraine. At least in this country, we can call it a war. Thinking of those who are in peril and fighting for democracy.
Okay, thank you, Representative Everson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Item 1, roll call.
Good evening. Is this on?
Yeah.
Yes.
When the green light is on, right.
I think we can't turn them off.
It's on. Maybe
They
it
won't
stays on.
go
Maybe
off,
it stays
yeah.
on.
They must have locked them
All
up.
right.
They're
okay.
all on.
Watch, they're all locked on.
Yeah, so be careful what you... Okay, Representative Alphone.
Present.
Representative Amore.
Present. Here.
Representative Anderson.
Here.
Representative Barron.
Present.
Representative Black.
Here.
Representative Bonenberger. I believe he's absent. Representative Brooks.
Here.
Representative Conklin.
Here.
Representative Everson.
Here?
Representative Erlanger.
Here.
Representative Flanagan.
Present?
Representative Greenberg.
That's who's missing.
Absent.
Absent.
Okay,
Aaron
thank
Miles.
you. Representative Healy.
Present.
Representative Henschel.
Present.
Representative Hines.
Here.
Representative Ingraham.
Here.
Representative Kelly. Absent. Representative Leach is present. Representative Maresca.
Here.
Representative Preet.
Here.
Representative Riccio.
Present.
Representative Shrestha.
Present.
Representative Sires.
Present.
Representative Stepanik.
Here.
Representative Sullivan.
Here.
Representative Torelli.
Not on
Not on virtual. Okay. Representative Toohill.
Here.
Representative Verderam.
Here.
Representative Witkowski.
Here.
Representative Wells. Absent. And for ex officios, I don't see First Selectman Cosgrove yet. Selectman Higgins is virtual, I believe.
Yeah, she's virtual.
Selectman Dunbar, no. Town Clerk Arpin is here, and Attorney Aniskovich is here.
And tax collector.
And the Housing Director and Tax
Tax collector,
Collector.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have a quorum? I guess we do.
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 2, approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Representative Ingraham. Is there a second?
Second.
Mark Riccio?
Who said the second on that?
Representative Riccio.
Who?
Representative Riccio.
Oh, Riccio? Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the previous meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved without exception. Moving on to item 3, reception of communications, reports of committees, and citizens' petitions. I have 2 pieces of correspondence here tonight. One, I received a letter from Representative Black and Representative Henschel regarding Town of Brantford tax collector, change from a elected position to a hired appointment. Dear Mr. Moderator, we propose that the representative town meeting through legislative action consider changing the position of the Brantford tax collector from an elected official to a hired appointment. Recent discussions within the town have thrown a spotlight on the variety of issues involving from the method the town utilizes to fill the role of the tax collector, example through election. It is time that the town considers changing the tax collectors to a hired position. We understand that the town attorney is currently working with the first selectman, OPM, and other interested parties on a draft ordinance to effect such change, but is waiting for the final fiscal 2021 audit report before submitting a final proposal. We further understand that such a draft should be ready in April. We look forward to receiving the town attorney's proposal. The duties, responsibilities, and expertise required of the tax collector are tightly prescribed by the state law, but the position does not require or in fact allow for a political consideration to influence any of the functional actions of the tax collector. Therefore, the selection of a tax collector through a political election procedure makes little sense and can result in unattended problems. State law also requires that the tax collector be certified through a 3-year procedure. This is time-consuming and must not take away from the full-time workload of the position. Therefore, the expectation that this role could be adequately fulfilled during a 2-year term as an elected official makes no sense. State law requires that a change in the method of appointing the tax collector by any town follow the same procedure that was used originally to establish that position. If enacted by the legislative ordinance, this would be changed by the legislative action. If enacted through a charter, then it must be changed by charter. The town attorney has indicated, but not definitely concluded, that a legislative action by the RTM would be sufficient to make this change. Therefore, we would ask that the RTM refer this to the R&O committee for recommendations that they consider an appropriate draft and ordinance changing the Brantford tax collector from an elected official to a higher appointment. This ordinance should also stipulate the minimum requirements of the position as well as the reappointing direction. I will send this to the Rules and Ordinance Committee. I have a letter here from the Brantford Housing Authority signed by Mr. Robert Imperara, Chair, and a copy from Bill Wayman Scovich, the Town Attorney, regarding Parkside Village redevelopment renewal of tax abatement. Dear Mr. Moderator Flanagan and RTM members, as you know, the Parkside Village redevelopment has received all the necessary land use and approvals as well as financing commitment to the Connecticut Department of Housing that is scheduled for closing in March 2022. Documents to approve the boundary line adjustments to benefit Sliney Park as well as public safety plans, recreational easements, and other documents have been approved. Throughout this process, it has been understood that the Parkside Village, owned by the Branford Housing Authority and operated as a housing for low and moderate income individuals and households, has benefited from an abatement of municipal real property taxes, an abatement that has been in place for decades. In the past 10 days, the town has informed the Housing Authority that it has located the long-missing 1974 assistance agreement between the state of Connecticut and the Branford Housing Authority, which is number 6 provides for the payment in lieu of taxes pilot in the amount of 5% of the net rent. Several days ago, town staff also discovered an October 1986 Board of Selectmen action by which even payments contemplated by the 1974 agreement were waived. Based on the newly found documents, the town attorney has communicated to the Housing Authority that it should apply to the RTM and the Board of Selectmen for renewal of the tax abatement from Parkside Village redevelopment. A draft proposal abatement agreement is attached as suggested by the town attorney, and the Housing Authority looks forward to the Administrative Service Committee taking up this request at the March 1st RTM meeting and a confirmation on March 9th. The Brantford Housing Authority has been authorized to represent the Department of Housing, supports the position stated here. We are also available to discuss and resolve any questions. Okay. That's all I have, and you have nothing else, right?
I have nothing else.
Okay. Moving on to item 4. To consider and take action on a request by the Branford Housing Authority for a tax abatement at Parkside 1 under Section 169 of the Town Code. Representative Verneram.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The item before you passed the committee with a vote of 5 in favor and 2 abstentions after a lengthy discussion, and I move passage. The item is a cooperation agreement between the Branford Housing Authority and the Town of Brantford. The agreement, as revised by the committee, proposes an abatement of real estate taxes only for a period of 20 years with 2 10-year extensions upon approval by the Board of Selectmen on the parcel of land on which a new Parkside 1 housing development will be built. During the committee deliberations, the following information was presented by the Housing Authority. 1, the abatement is being granted to the Branford Housing Authority, which retains ownership of the land for the duration of the ground lease that will facilitate the construction of the new building. Secondly, the abatement will not be assigned to any third party unless it complies with the Town Code Section 169-4. Third, the market rate units will be subject to regulated rent levels by the State of Connecticut Department of Housing and thus complies with the state law definition of, quote, housing solely for low or moderate income persons or families. Lastly, after consultation with Town Council, the Branford Housing Authority agreed to delete the abatement of assessments and sewer use fees as there is no statutory authority for abating those charges. Mr. Moderator, I move a favorable vote.
Okay, there's been a motion on the floor to approve this tax abatement. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Representative Black.
Thank you. Just to be clear, I'm going to vote against this one. Is the financial impact on the town. When you add the $75,000 up per year, it's really like a grant of $1.5 million or $3 million. And there are other affordable housing complexes in town that do pay taxes. Rice Terrace pays $150,000 a year. Rosenthal Gardens, which is a nonprofit, pays $16,000 a year. Summit Place pays taxes. The affordable housing at 92 Rogers pays its taxes. So that's I'll be voting against this. Thank you.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this? Representative Sires?
Thank you. I will be voting against it. I don't feel that the taxpayers should be burdened with the tax abatement. In favor of the project, I'm happy that it is for the poor and the low income. I have no objection to the project at all. I do have an objection to any abatement on real property taxes, especially in a time of hyperinflation right now. I feel I don't have the exact numbers and figures that I feel comfortable voting for something at this time, and I would vote against.
Anyone else from the RTM? Representative Everson?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This measure before us tonight is because there's no formal record of this long-standing arrangement of a tax abatement for the Branford Housing Authority that could be found. Poor record keeping and the town's failure over the years to formally renew a tax abatement is no fault of the residents who for nearly 5 decades have lived at Parkside 1. Informally, the town and its taxpayers have always financially supported a tax abatement for the Branford Housing Authority. No tax dollars will be lost. No tax dollars will be lost if this is approved tonight. The Branford Housing Authority keeps the land and will own the new building. State statute provides for tax abatements for housing authorities in order to allow rents to remain below market rate. This in turn provides housing opportunities for lower income applicants who qualify. Our neighbors and fellow residents live there and will be provided an opportunity to return once the new building is built according to the relocation plan that has been shared. Other housing in town, Carey, Chandler, and Brick, are also afforded tax abatements. Should this not be approved this evening, there is the potential, only a potential, that this town could be sued. The town has already spent $200,000 on litigation related to the rebuilding of Parkside 1, battling it out for years in court. It's time to move this project forward so that our neighbors can return to the place they once called home. I'll be voting in favor of this. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Clerk, Representative Torelli came on at
Representative
8:15.
Torelli is here.
8:15.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
8:13, I'm sorry.
Representative Ricchio?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I struggled with this decision, but I think finally I am going to support this. I'm not a big fan of giving tax abatements to organizations or companies, but I think this is a special situation. This property has not paid taxes since it was started back in the 70s. I'm going to use an analogy that I used during caucus. The way my mind thinks, I think of HUD, which this falls under, I believe, is similar to the educational body at the federal level in our Board of Education. Would we charge the Board of Education rent for our schools? We wouldn't. And I just kind of, in my own mind, that's how I kind of thought of this, which helped me justify to support this this motion. So I will support it. And I think Representative Everson, I think you're right. We've been talking about this for many, many years. Let's get going with this and start talking about some other business in this town. Thank you.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this? Representative Stepanek?
I regretfully will vote against this. I gathered a lot of financial information about Beacon and so forth and the project, and I think it's inappropriate for a for-profit successful company like that not to pay taxes to Brantford.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak? Hearing none, anyone from the public wishing to speak? Can we give Mr. Petrowski the mic?
Thank you, Todd Petrowski. I'm kind of torn with this. I could go either way. My problem with it is I know from 1974, the dynamic of the building and the residents has changed. And I don't care who lives there. I don't care if it's all kids, who it is, that's not an issue. But the issue is those seniors that lived there, the 50 of them or so, really they weren't in the school system. And I know roughly, according to Brantford, it costs about $23,071 per student per year to go into the school system. And doing some research on my own about the fair housing laws and all that, they like 2 heartbeats per bedroom, which I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but there is a potential of having 68 students into our school system through this project. So times 23,000 apiece, that's about $1.6 million a year, busing, which is fine. You guys have wasted tax dollars a lot worse than on children's education. So I really wouldn't mind if my taxes went up for kids to get an education in this town. But what I do have a problem with is what Representative Stepanek said, and I agree with him. They're standing to make about $2 million a year profit. They pretty much got the property for free. It's a $3.5 to $4 million property, even though it was renegotiated for $100,000 the first year and $10,000 for the second year. It's still a steal, which is fine. Good for Beacon. They manipulated the system. They won. I'm happy for them. Number 2, they're using tax credits to build the building, which is free money to them. So in the next 10 to 15 or 20 years, they're not really gonna have to spend any money as far as a new roof or siding or windows or maintenance, because it's a brand new building built for free. So I would like to know, and if you do some simple math, that if you divide $1 million into the amount of units and break it down by the amount of rents there is, you're looking at an average of $1,243 per unit, which equates to $1 million, which is very easy to get in that location. So where there's no money, I would like to know, and let's not forget Parkside too is still part of Beacon and involved here, where they generate about $300,000 a year. So with the building that's taken up most of the property, and a parking lot that's taken up most of the property, there's really no landscaping or maintenance to be done, so there's really not a lot of cost there. So I guess my question would be, where's the money going, and who's it going to? And second of all, the question which I should ask first, and I apologize, was about a year ago, I sponsored a petition about the Housing Authority. And this body, as well as the Rules and Ordinance, Mr. Black was one of them, that the Housing Authority isn't in your guys' purview, because it's not a town entity. And here we are, and you guys are dealing with the Housing Authority. When we brought up the charges of corruption and theft, you guys didn't want to know anything about it. You pretty much shoot it off, and you sent it to the first selectman's office. So I'm just curious why now we're dealing with the Housing Authority, when before we didn't want to deal with it. That's a question. And number two is, I'm curious to why our tax collector, this is nothing personal, Bob, why our tax collector is advocating for free taxes on this property. Isn't the object to make money for the town? Isn't that why Amazon, how to get Amazon here for taxes and all these? So I don't understand what's going on here, and it's a for-profit, like Mr. Stepanek said. You can look on their website. I believe the net last year was $28 million they made. So how they're losing money on a free project, and the fact that it's a $3.5 million property with $26 million in free tax credits being built, how come nobody could afford to pay anything? So where's the money going, is what I would like to know. And I think before you guys even make a vote, I think you should get some costs. Where's the money going, or how many people? I mean, they're not gonna be able to tell you today who's moving in there and who's not. They don't know who's gonna qualify. They don't know who's not gonna qualify. So how can somebody say it's not gonna be a burden on our school system, or it's not gonna be a burden here? They can't answer that question. Until you guys get proper answers, you shouldn't make any votes. I understand you want to get rid of this thing. It's been lingering for 7 years. We could all agree in this room it's been mishandled from day one. Nobody wants to really say, you all say it behind closed doors. It's a mess down there. And here we are. Now we're stuck dealing with it. You know, the property is getting, you know, built up, which would have never been allowed by zoning. They used the law. Great. They manipulated the town. They bullied us. Their lawyers are better than ours. They won. But the bottom line is, let's get something in return for it. It shouldn't be a freebie. And I would like to know, and I'm sure you guys would like to know, what the cost is going to be per taxpayer. Because lately, the taxpayers in this town don't win. We lose all the time with your guys' votes. We lost with the library, our taxes went up. We lost with the community house. We lose with Costco. We lose with the 830G. We lose with inlands and wetlands. Mr. Cook got $700,000 of our taxpayers' money. We lose. So I understand, and this is why I'm for it, because let's keep that streak going of losing. Give it to them for free. Who cares at this point? And that's why I brought the people's lubrication for the screwing we're going to get from this board tonight with this tax abatement. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak to this? Huh? Anyone else from the RTM? Mr. Brooks, Representative Brooks, go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead. I can see it.
Hi, my name is Ted Zeus. I own a house across the street from Parkside 1 at 118 South Monowese. I also own a business in town. Hi, my name's Ted Zeus. I live at, have a house at 118 South Monowese. right across the street from Parkside 1. I also have a business in town at 54 East Industrial Road. We've sort of been following the project that's under discussion, and we're aware, having read all the state statutes and everything else, that the developer, the architect, and the construction management team, all of whom might participate in the upcoming project, are by law allowed to make 7.5% profit after the project's actually done. So on a $35 million project, that means each of those three groups that participate in the development of the property as for-profit businesses will make $2.5 million on the project. And that $2.5 million will be public money that is paid for by us, the citizens and the public, when the building gets built. That's built into the statute. That's how the funding on these projects works. We're also aware that the deal that was done between the Housing Authority at the time the contract was awarded to this developer was signed by members of the Housing Authority at that time who are now on the actual nonprofit who are there. And so they have actually signed the deal and been the reciprocal benefit of the deal that they signed. And we know that that's a conflict of interest. And so there's a concern there, I think, on the public's part. And as you probably are well aware, at the state level, with some of the school construction contracts that are currently being investigated at the state level, there's been resignations both in the governor's office and also in the school construction departments when people have finally had the time to go and unwind all these deals and find out what's going on. And I would just suggest to you this evening that there are the same problems with this deal as there are with some of the school projects where people are now losing their jobs at the state level. The lead person in the development office from Beacon, who started this project at the beginning, by law was not allowed to receive any state funding, having left her job at the state housing department. And we also know that the company that she works for received money that is state money within the 2 years on this project for development costs within the 2-year period. And we know that that's not legal as well. So my concern as a citizen, I sort of agree with some of the points that have already been made, but given the fact that it's going to be built with public money and it will be built for free, and it also gets to collect the rent that people live there, the rest of us in town paid our own money to build our own buildings, and we pay taxes every year. And I don't understand how Beacon will not have the revenue to pay the due property taxes on this. And if you guys could explain that to us this evening, or someone could actually show us the numbers on the math, I think it'd be helpful. I think the public deserves to know that before a vote is taken. Thanks.
Representative Brooks? Yeah.
No,
No, you can
Can
stand.
I just talk? I'm pretty loud.
Yeah.
Just move the microphone closer.
Just use the microphone.
It's for TV, not for
You know, there's a lot just said that has nothing to do with item number 4. Item number 4 is a simple question. Do we give a tax abatement to BHA? Is that right? Or is it DH? BHA?
Yeah.
There's another one, it's B, I get it confused. So, I don't, like, I'm not voting on whether Beacon should or shouldn't make money. I'm voting on whether or not BHA should get a tax abatement that they've had for 50 years. It almost seems to not give them the tax abatement now, I want to use the word disingenuous, but I'm sure that's not the correct meaning. It's what we've done, and it's what we should do. And the only person or people that will be affected by not getting the tax abatement are the residents that have lived there for 50 years, who are Brantford residents. Now, I know they all haven't lived there for 50 years, so please don't attack me for that. They live there. They get first right of refusal, and most of them will go back. If you don't give them what they've always had, their rent will increase. Regardless of whose decision it is to increase it or not, that's what will happen. So it's those people that will suffer, our neighbors that will suffer by us just not continuing status quo. And that, to me, just doesn't feel right, not even remotely right.
Representative Everson,
Mr. Moderator?
Representative Everson?
Thank you. Because of questions that have been raised through you, perhaps to the town attorney or to the BHOA board president, if we could get a clarification as to who is the beneficiary of a tax abatement and how it relates to this project.
So either town attorney or Bob Imperato want to answer that one?
Bob Imperato, president of the...
You need a microphone. Nice try, though.
Bob, want your old seat?
I'd rather be over there. It's a lot easier. Robert Imperato, Chair of the Brantford Housing Authority. So really who benefits from this is Brantford Housing Authority. Again, we seem to be going down a path where it's about Beacon. It's not about Beacon. It's about the Housing Authority. And again, Josh, you put it so well that it's been here for 50 years, this abatement, and we shouldn't be doing anything else but continuing on with that. It's going to, again, house low to moderate income folks that comply with the Department of Housing and the federal statutes. We're not doing anything different than we've done in the past. What's going to happen is the town is going to get a brand new facility, state of the art, where these folks are going to enjoy a better lifestyle. So the benefit really runs to the Housing Authority. We own the dirt underneath it, the property, and we will own the improvements. So I don't understand why folks are thinking that there's two separate entities here that are going to own this. The Brantford Housing Authority, let me make it clear, the Brantford Housing Authority will own both the land and the improvements. We have a 40-year lease with Beacon, and the reason we have a 40-year lease is that's what CHFA requires. I have put a land ground lease together. I've structured it where the Housing Authority is protected. It's protected in the ways that we have covenants in there for any defaults that might happen through the construction of this project and or in the lease. It reverts back to us. So it will always be Brantford's Housing Authority that this benefit runs to. Questions? Peter.
Representative Black?
Yeah, Mr. Moderator, just through you, I'd heard that the lease was 99 years. Is that a different lease, or was that just wrong? I know there's a lot of information running around here, and that's one of the things that, you know, I know you want to get this passed tonight, but some of us that have problems because we hear one thing from, you know, one ear, et cetera.
So the lease is for, through you, Mr. Moderator, the lease is for 40 years with Beacon. There is a 98-year continuing lease if we redo it with them. So we can go out to 98 years. And we have a deed restriction, Peter, that it can only be used for moderate to low income housing. Yep.
Sorry. Anika Singh Lamar, counsel for the Housing Authority of the Town of Brantford. Through you, Mr. Moderator, it is a 98-year lease. The deed restriction with the state runs for 40 years. The affordability requirements run beyond the 40 years because of the restrictions in the lease. So the affordability covenants to the state also are made to the Housing Authority. The abatement before you, however, is 20 plus 10 plus 10, so it lines up with the 40-year regulatory agreement with the state. But it's a 98-year lease to the Housing Authority.
Any other questions from members of the RTM?
Yeah, no, because I'm more confused than ever.
Do you want me to say it again? Because I can it's not.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay, great.
I just,
yeah, it's
the
a 40
lease is, can I, through you, Mr. Moderator, the lease is for 98 years. There's a covenant in the lease requiring it to be used for a low to moderate income housing. But there is nothing in that lease about like a 40 renewable for 98. It's just straight 98 so long as it's used. Now, okay, so something else, there was a covenant with the state that's for 40 years, which is contemporaneous with the tax abatement. And presumably the Brantford Housing Authority, in cooperation with somebody else, could decide after 40 years to modify the lease to not make it 99, but to short, well, with whoever the other party is, you could modify. I mean, there's two parties to this lease. I don't know if they're the Brantford Housing Authority of Beacon, is that correct?
It's the Housing Authority on one side, and then a limited liability company called Parkside One.
Okay.
Something.
Okay, but if the LLC and the house, like any other contractual parties, they could agree to modify it. But right now, they're really bound for 40 years at least. But at 40 years, they could shorten or link. You chose 99 just because that's the longest legal time. Okay, for 98. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Representative Anderson, you had your hand up?
I have a question about the Brantford Housing Authority and who owns it. Is it a for-profit company? Is it a non-profit company? I want to know what that entity is.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, I'll take that just because it's a strictly legal question. So, Section 8-40.
Excuse me, can you hold the mic a little
Sorry,
closer?
is that
Just so
better?
we can all hear.
Section 8-40 of the Connecticut General Statutes authorizes local governments in the state of Connecticut to form housing authorities. It's not unlike a sewer authority or another kind of governmental instrumentation that is formed for a specific purpose, in this case, the provision of housing. It is a nonprofit in the sense that it's government, so nobody owns the housing authority. Its profits don't accrue to any individual people or companies. They get funneled back into the operation the same way it would, again, for, say, a sewer authority or a regional health district or, these kinds of government instrumentalities that get formed for specific purposes. That's all the housing authority is. It's, again, formed pursuant to state law. The town adopted an ordinance in the early 70s forming the housing authority.
And you're the chair?
I am the chair.
Who else is on this entity?
There's 5 members.
And who are they?
Representative Anderson, can you use the mic? The
I'm
public
sorry.
will not be able to hear what you guys are saying.
Yeah, Kate Collins, Mark Coelho, Jerry Mastangelo, myself, and Jamie Kavanaugh.
And these people all live in Brantford? These people
Yes,
are
yep. They've all been appointed.
appointed?
Yep, by
Okay.
the selectmen.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Preet, did you have your hand up? Yes? Did you have your hand? No? Did you have your hand up? No? Okay, then we'll go to Representative Sires.
Thank you. Give me your, may I?
Make sure you have the microphone.
Chairman Imparato, we were told that the Housing Authority is a state entity. It's a quasi-state entity, and that's why the town never got involved with it starting in 2016. Is that, that's what it's written. It's written as a quasi-state entity.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, it is an entity authorized by state law, but formed at the option of the local government, and Brantford exercised that option again in the early 1970s.
Thank you, understand. So the town does own it? So the town can make, we were told that the town could never get involved with it because it's a state.
Nobody owns the housing authority. It's not owned. It's a governmental authority. The town does not own it. It is unowned.
But the town owns the land and owns the building?
No. The housing authority.
What is Brantford Affordable Housing, Inc.?
Okay, so I'm more than happy to continue down the line of answering these questions.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me just ask.
The question's on the tax abatement.
Yes, this is about the tax abatement. It's about the money to it. But you mentioned a Parkside LLC or something. Is that another entity for the tax that deals with the finance? I'm strictly talking about the financing of this entity.
That'll be the tenant of the ground lease is the entity to which the tax credits are allocated. And the reason for that is the program is a public-private partnership. There's got to be somebody who takes advantage of the tax credits for the credits to funnel through. Brantford Affordable Housing, Inc. is a 501c3 affiliate of the Housing Authority that will be in that entity for the purposes of having a local body in that entity.
And let me get to Representative Everson. So is every one of them will be making money through this project or no?
Nobody makes money. Brantford Affordable Housing Inc. is a 501c3 charity. It is also unowned. Its proceeds and profits don't accrue to anybody, and in fact, it can't really make profits. The profits have to roll into its mission of providing affordable housing in the town of Brantford.
And okay, and that's so thus for the abatement that you're asking for. There's no money being made by anyone?
So it's a real estate development project. There will be a property manager. There will be people who, clean the grounds and plow the roads. I mean, somebody's going to make money, but there's not. The project itself is a heavily regulated, government subsidized project where all of those payments are heavily supervised and highly regulated, and all of the fees are capped. The application documents are thousands of pages long for the state to confirm that all those things are true. There's no, it's not that nobody makes money, right? The general contractor on this project is going to get paid a fee for their services. They don't do it for free. To get at what I think is your broader question of is somebody absconding with illegally with funds has been alleged? No, absolutely not, obviously.
No, that wouldn't be something at all of an allegation. The project we're having is going
Mr.
forward.
Moderator, Carolyn, let me just get us back on track. This is an abatement for the Brantford Housing Authority and no one else.
I'm sorry, I was in the middle of a question. I didn't know if I was taking you off track.
Well, the question was,
So I would just say, I just
the question
wanted-
we're dealing with tonight is just strictly on the tax abatement.
Correct. Okay, well, thank you. That was my question. If they don't have a house, if there is no abatement, can this project go forward?
I don't know what Claire's doing. Feeding the
This
horses.
is strictly on the abatement. If there is no abatement, can the project go forward?
Well, I would think that would be up to the developer.
Are they here to answer that? Or?
No. Again, this is for the Brantford Housing Authority.
I think it's,
Not the
Representative
developer.
Zayers, it's,
Okay. All right, thank you.
it's been stated already, this has nothing to do with the project itself. This is a tax abatement we're dealing with tonight. So keep that in mind.
Correct.
Representative,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Representative Henschel?
Yes, this is Representative Henschel. Is this thing turned on? Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
This is just a general statement, not for Mr. Imperato or the attorney. I'm going to vote yes for this abatement. I think Brantford has an obligation to provide residents with good affordable housing. I think we have both a legal requirement to do that and a moral requirement to do that. And when I look at the vote itself, I think what we need to look at is what are the consequences of a vote for or against this particular issue that we're considering. A vote yes is a vote to provide at least 39 existing low-income Brantford residents and citizens with modern and affordable housing. It's also to provide that housing with no change in cost to Brantford taxpayers. We've been giving this abatement for decades. The project is not being funded, the construction and development of the project is not being funded with town money. So in terms of the impact on the taxpayer, it's minimal other than the normal services that any resident of Brantford would get from the town. On the other hand, a vote no and a vote to abstain is a vote currently to leave at least 39 Brantford citizens and Parkside residents living in horribly substandard conditions. I've been in these units, I've photographed them. You know, they're in fact deplorable. Nobody should be living in these. They're probably very close to being condemned, some of the units. In addition, I think a vote no is potentially to invite a federal lawsuit that could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to the town itself. I think a vote no could also invite a civil lawsuit from Beacon for damages that could also result in a liability on behalf of the town in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think there's a possibility that a vote no could force the housing authority into receivership is a possibility. And essentially what it would do is we would be requiring the entire redevelopment process be started again from scratch. This is not going to go away. We would need to start, we'd lose everything that we've done to date. We have a lot of potential liabilities, and we'd have to go through this process and the expenses of the process a second time for God knows how many years till we get to where we are today. So I'm going to vote for this. I think that everybody else should vote for it, and just weigh the consequences of what if you're voting against it, what you're actually voting against.
Thank you, Representative Mitchell. Anyone else from the RTM? Representative Emerson?
Thank you. Another question was raised by Mr. Bertrowski as to why this matters before the RTM. If we could hear from the town attorney to speak to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Emerson. Bill Anaskovich from Brenner-Saltzman. There was a question that was raised with respect to why the RTM had no authority to take up questions with respect to the regulation and operation of the Brantford Housing Authority on the grounds that it is not a town agency, but yet now we're here taking up an abatement of the Brantford Housing Authority. A good question with a very simple answer. As Attorney Singh-Lamar just pointed out, housing authorities are created by state law. State law provides a municipality with two powers with respect to housing authorities. One, by resolution of its legislative body, the town may establish the need and form a housing authority. In the event a town does that, then the Board of Selectmen in that town have appointing authority to the members of that housing authority. And there ends the town's regulatory authority. The housing authority therefore operates under the regulation and supervision of state law, which is vested in the State Department of Housing. Courts and commentators have characterized municipal housing authorities as quasi-state agencies for that reason. So the remark by Representative Sires with respect to that terminology is accurate with respect to how others have characterized it. That is the reason why the operation of the housing authority is beyond the scope of the authority of the RTM. And it is also the reason why the Brantford Housing Authority must come here tonight, because the granting of tax abatements is within the authority of the representative town meeting under Code Section 169, which was passed pursuant to enabling legislation in the Connecticut General Statutes at 8-215. That statute allows for a town to abate taxes that would be paid by the fee owner of land and improvements, so long as that abatement is related to the provision of low and moderate income housing. Low and moderate income housing, actually the phrase solely for low and moderate income housing is a phrase defined in 8-202 of the Connecticut General Statutes. And there are at least 7 housing authority projects in this state that operate in very similar ways under that definition. And therefore, we concluded that this item legally, in content and in form, is properly before you as a matter of law.
Thank you, Attorney Ag. Any other questions from the RTM or members of the public?
Through you, Mr. Moderator.
Representative Brooks, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, I just want to tell the town attorney he did a fine job there.
All right. If there's no further,
Who's waiting for that?
if there are no further questions from the RTM or members of the public, we'll do a roll call vote on this item. A yes vote in favor, a no vote you are against.
Okay. Get closer to the mic. Representative Alphone.
Representative Alphone votes no.
Representative Amore.
Representative Amore votes yes.
Representative Anderson.
Can you come back to me, please?
Okay, remind me if I forget, sorry. Representative Barron.
Yes.
Representative Black.
No.
Representative Brooks.
Yes.
Representative Conklin.
Representative Conklin votes yes.
Representative Everson.
Representative Everson votes yes.
Representative Erlanger.
Representative Erlanger votes yes.
Representative Healy.
Representative Healy votes yes.
Representative Henschel.
Representative Henschel votes yes.
Representative Hines.
Representative Hines votes yes.
Everybody say their name.
Representative Ingraham.
Yes.
Representative Leach votes yes. Representative Maresca.
Yes.
Representative Preet.
Yes.
Representative Ricchio.
Yes.
Representative Shrestha.
Yes.
Representative Sires.
No.
Representative Stepanik.
No.
Representative Sullivan.
Yes.
Representative Torelli.
Representative Torelli votes yes.
Representative Toohill.
No.
Representative Verderam.
Representative Verderam votes yes.
Representative Witkowski.
Yes.
And that's it.
Anderson.
Oh, sorry. See, I knew I would forget. Representative Anderson.
I vote yes.
Thank you. So I believe we have 20 yes votes, if I counted correctly.
I had 22.
It's 20, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and
It's
5 no votes.
5 no's and how many yes?
20.
Okay, the tax abatement issue passes. Moving on to item 5, to consider and if appropriate, approve a request from the Shoreline Adult Education Program Facilitator for the following budget transfer for the current fiscal year. From purchase services, $3,000, to travel, $500, to miscellaneous expenses, $2,500. Representative Preet.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Education Subcommittee did not meet this month, so I would ask that we waive Rule 4.4.1, and I put that in the form of a motion.
I'll second. Third, fourth.
Motion on the floor to waive Rule 441 has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion to waive the rule? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is a pretty straightforward transfer, and I believe the program facilitator is in the audience if there's any more detail required. The Shoreline Adult Education is anticipating less purchase service expenses than they had budgeted for this year. So they're asking that we transfer $500 from purchase services to travel to offset costs for enrichment classes that folks had taken outside the town of Brantford. And also, with the festival back in play this year, they're asking that we transfer $2,500 from purchase services to miscellaneous expenses. And they'd like to do that because they not only like to participate as a vendor, but they'd also like to help sponsor this year's festival. So that's a total of $3,000 in transfers. And I want to remind this body that the Shoreline Adult Education is a self-funding department, so they don't spend any more money than they take in. So it's no cost to the taxpayers. So I put that in the form of a motion.
Motion
I'll second
on the floor to approve the transfer. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Representative Ingraham. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Go ahead.
Now we're going to
Just
do the microphone over.
identify yourself for the public, please.
Hi, I'm Christine Bjork. I am the program facilitator for Shoreline Adult Education, and I just want to slightly amend that. We do want to participate in Brantford Festival, but as the craft fair and vendor on the Saturdays. So that's my amendment to that.
Okay. Any other questions from the members of the RTM? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the transfer carries. Moving on to item 6, to consider and if appropriate, approve a request from the Board of Fire Commissioners for the following fire service budget transfer for the current fiscal year. From regular wages and salaries, $105,000 to overtime, $105,000. Representative Conklin.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is an intra-year, intra-budget transfer for the fire department. This department had been short 4 employees through December, and so therefore their regular wages and salaries budget has more than they need, and the way they pay for that is with overtime, because you have to replace the firemen. And so therefore we need to move money from one bucket into the other. And I would put that in the form of a motion, and we did pass it in committee March 3rd, 5-0.
Okay, a motion on the floor to approve the transfer. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Discussion from the public? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Transfer carries. Okay, moving on to item 7, to consider and if appropriate, approve a request from the Register of Voters for the following budget transfer for the current fiscal year. From moving and storage, $1,500, equipment rental, $2,550, building rental, $1,000, other purchase services, $4,500, postage, $616, for a total of $10,166. 2, meal supplies, $212, and other supplies, $9,954, for a total of $10,166. Representative Verderam.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Once again, this item is an intra-year, intra-budget transfer. This is for the Registrar of Voters to compensate for the additional sanitary and PPE expenses that they incurred during the last election. For the 2020 election, these costs were covered by the Secretary of State's office. For last year's municipal election, these costs were not covered by the Secretary of the State's office. Mr. Moderator, this item passed committee with a unanimous vote, and I move its favorable passage. Thank you.
Motion on the floor to approve this transfer. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Members of the public? No? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The item carries. Moving on to item 8, to consider and if appropriate, approve request from the Director of Human Resources to amend the fiscal 2021 and 22 budgets to account for salary changes pursuant to the collective bargaining agreement for the Public Works Union contract, includes general government buildings, transfer station, and public works personnel. This is from contingency, $21,686, to retro wages overtime, fiscal 20 and 21, $9,941, to wages, fiscal 2022, $8,809, to accrue payroll, $34, to overtime, fiscal 2022, for $2,902, for a total of $21,686. And from contingency, $26,143. 2, retro wages and overtime fiscal 20 and 21, $10,704. And 2, wages to $12,454. And 2, accrue payroll 2022 for $48. And 2, overtime fiscal 2022 for a total of $26,143. And that was for the transfer station. And this is for Public Works. From contingency, $140,641. 2, retro wages overtime fiscal 2021, $71,276. 2, wages, $62,124. To accrue payroll fiscal 2022 for $239. And 2, overtime fiscal 2022 for $7,002, for a total of $140,641. Representative Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ways and Means met last Wednesday to review this. Basically, it's straightforward transfers of contracts that we just have to fulfill. Motion was made in committee by Representative Black, and we actually put 8, 9, and the resolution together, and we voted on that, and that passed 5-0. And I'd like to put that in the form of a motion, albeit we did 8, 9 together. If we're just going to do each one, then we could just do number 8. And I put that transfer in the form of a motion.
Okay, this is on item 8. Your motion is to approve the transfer, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Moderator.
Okay. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The item carries. Moving on to item 9, to consider and if appropriate approval request from the Director of Human Resources to amend the fiscal 2022 budget to account for the salary changes pursuant to the collective bargaining agreement for the supervisors union contract. This contract effective July 1, 2021, and as approved by the RTM, will increase the salary budgets this fiscal year by 2%. From contingency, $21,262. 2, wages and salaries finance, $1,900. Wages and salaries assessor, $1,893. Wages and salaries planning and zoning, $2,295. Wages and salaries inland wetlands, $1,519. Wages and salaries building, $1,838. Wages and salaries public works, $1,445. Wages and salaries solid waste, $1,386. Wages and salaries engineering, $2,383. Wages and salaries senior center, $1,929. Wages and salaries recreation, $1,435. Wages and salaries Willoughby Wallace Library, $1,818. And crew payroll expense, $8. Crew payroll expense, $8. Crew payroll expense, $9. Crew payroll expense, $6. Crew payroll expense, $10. Crew payroll expense, $6. Crew payroll expense, $6. Crew payroll expense, $10. Crew payroll expense, $8. Crew payroll expense, $6. Crew payroll expense, $7. Transfer out animal control fund, $1,328, for a total of $21,262.
Where'd you keep on that?
And corresponding animal control transfer from appropriation increase, operating transfer in $1,320, and for appropriation increase from wages and salaries, $1,322, and accrued payroll expense for $6. We go resolved. The Board of Finance recommends to the RTM a transfer out of $1,328 to the Animal Control Fund to fund salary changes pursuant to the collective bargaining agreement for the supervisors union. This transfer will increase the fiscal year 2022 budget in the Animal Control Fund from $388,547 to $389,875. Representative Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, again. We voted on this together with number 8 as stipulated before, fulfillment of the contracts, as we know, as we have to do. And that passed committee 5-0 with the resolution, and I put its passage in the form of a motion. Thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor to approve this transfer. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Representative Black?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, just a technical issue as you read it and as it's, the resolution said the Board of Finance recommends. What we should be passing is that the RTM resolved, the RTM transfers out the 1328 to the Animal Control Fund since we're not the Board of Finance.
Gotcha, okay.
So for the minutes, that's how it should read.
So it should read the RTM
Chairman?
transfers out.
The RTM
Right,
transfer.
resolved that the RTM transfers out.
Right.
Thank you.
Just if you
Beginning sentence.
look at that, you'll understand where we're going.
Thank you.
Okay, any discussion from members of the RTM? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Transfer passes. Moving on to item 10, to consider and if appropriate, approve a request from the Assistant Finance Director for the following budget transfer. From contingency, $1,900 to expenses and claims, $1,900. Representative Healy?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ways and Means meeting on this. This basically is a transfer to help clean up the accounting issues in the tax department after there was some erroneous bills that went out for basically our sewer system. It was 490 bills that went out incorrectly back in August, and it created an interest that was due. That since it was the fault of the software that has since been corrected, that this is going to help clear up those accounts because we don't feel as though our taxpayers should have to be liable for that interest that accumulated. Now, whereas we're transferring the $1,900, they're anticipating that not all of that is going to be utilized, but that's going to help for a couple of others that are trickling in as they do that. Anything that's left over, we are going to then get a detailed account of, and then that will be put back into the general fund. So this passed a committee 5-0, and I put its passage in the form of a motion. Thank you.
Motion on the floor to approve this transfer. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? The item carries. Moving on to item 11. Any other business to come before the RTM? Representative Brooks?
Just a clarification, if you don't mind. The letter that was sent by Mr. Black, Representative Black and Representative Henschel, will that go before R&O? Did we recommend that that go? I didn't hear that, so I just want to clarify that's going to be recommended that that letter will go before R&O?
Are you talking about the letter I read from?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I
Sir,
sent it
yes,
to Rules
sir.
and Ordinance, yes.
So that's going to go, okay, that's
Yeah.
all. I didn't hear that, but maybe I wasn't listening.
Yeah.
Probably the latter.
Yep.
Okay.
Representative Toohill?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to request that we have a moment of silence, please, for two recently former departed RTM members, Virginia Stanlake and Alice Lambert.
So be it, a moment of silence. Okay. Mr. Jeroen, I got your request. You wanted to address the RTM?
Yes. Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Moderator. When I spoke last here, I believe it was in November, it preceded the vote on the administrator's contract for the Board of Ed. I believe I said, in terms of my assessment of the room that It looks like it was going to pass, and it certainly did. I just want to say with regard to that, there's a lot going on over there, and it's not good for the town. When I looked at it even further, suffice to say, the hiring that's being done at the administration level with the district, these are people typically, and I'm not saying it's true of all, but it's true of an alarming majority. They're good enough not to burn the house down, but they're not so strong and confident coming in the door that they're going to push back, that they're going to lead, that they're going to, that they're just not going to take marching orders. So I'm just saying is that there's a bigger problem here, and honestly, when I looked at it, it surprised even me. And I guess I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't see that. But the depth of the hiring of, well, we might call them people that are strong enough to do the day-to-day, but people that are more apt to be beholden to the superintendent, that's not good. Maybe that's good for the superintendent, but it's not good for the district. It's not good for the town. It's not a positive expenditure of the monies. And, you know, it just seemed like it was already predestined. I reserve the right to be wrong, of course, but it seemed that it was predestined to pass. After I spoke, the chairman of the RTM Education Committee felt that, oh no, we can't go, you know, these are his words, not mine, and, you know, a summation of them. No, we can't go into vote now after, you know, you just listened to these last comments, and I was speaking the truth. In terms of what we're investing in, we're paying more and more money to get less and less. And I never thought of that as a sound investment, and I thought Mr. Healy's comments were on point then, and honestly even more on point. You know, right around, we're at a key point right now where the budget is right around the corner. I'd like you all to consider thinking about something ahead of time, and hence my comments, which hopefully are a little proactive, right, in the sense that, you know, you don't have the budget book staring you in the face ready for a vote tonight. I believe that's next month. You know, we've had 11 and a half years of a substandard superintendent. We really have. And if anybody wants to debate that issue with me, if anybody wants to talk separately, I'm happy to do that. But really and truly we do. There's so many warning signs there. It's like it's in neon lights, all right? Turnover rates, 15% favorability rating within the district. People that are scared. I mean, you know, it's going downhill. And, you know, we're in a mode where we're just continuing to do the same thing, the same way, the same people. And are we really doing that with the idea of expecting a different result? I hope not. What I'd like you to respectfully, you know, consider ahead of time is that, you know, in my business of executive search, you see situations like this where, you know, enrollment has gone down 20% over the last 10 years. Expenses have gone up. Administration costs have gone up. These are models, business models that are unsustainable. And in situations like this, typically consultants are brought in. People typically lose their jobs, and consultants are brought in to get to the bottom of what the core issues are. And I'd like to respectfully suggest that you all think about a way so as to make this happen, because, you know, we're just kicking the can and passing the buck, and time is marching on. And it's perfect for the superintendent, okay? It really is. It's good for him. Is it good for our town? And what I'm saying is that with regard to that budget, looking at it and saying, hey, we can't give this, you know, being more restrictive, but being more flexible to bring in, you know, to do a real study. Because I'm telling you that there is every conceivable indicator that there's a real problem here. And I believe that if a real consulting firm is brought in to do a real study, and I mean an objective study, not somebody that the superintendent you know, has been drinking with and or smoking cigars with for the last 20 years. I'm talking about a real objective study geared toward the client, which would be the Board of Ed, the RTM, whatever. Typically in situations like this, what is uncovered can be alarming. And, you know, I think when you look back in closing, when you look back at what some of the concerns were a few months ago, you know, there's a lot of people in here that get it. There's a lot of people in here that feel it. But there needs to be a few more that are willing to step up to the plate and swing the bat. And I'm respectfully suggesting that if you do that, that's not a bad thing. That can only be a good thing. And with that, I just wanted to say that ahead of the budget being here, and I want to wish you all a great rest of the evening. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other business to come before the RTM?
Citizen, yeah.
Come up here, sir. No, we're not. Go to the educated committee. Go ahead. No, you're up. He's all done.
I appreciate how hard it is to be on boards like this, and I appreciate everybody's service for doing it. There were some comments that were made right before the vote was made on the tax abatement, and I just wanted to clarify one point. That there has been some concern expressed by citizens in the community about the development project. I don't think anybody in the town doesn't support public housing or affordable housing and wanted Parkside 1 to be better, myself included. And I think the concern is that for the last 6 years with Beacon's involvement in the project, what we've witnessed is we've witnessed demolition by neglect. And we've witnessed the siphoning of public money out of that facility to either go to architects, go to development projects, go to studies. And so the money did not get spent that we have already spent as public citizens to maintain that facility at the standard that we all expect. We expect all our public buildings to be top-notch and well-maintained. And so the frustration I think that the public is trying to articulate to you and to our government is that we're happy to pay the taxes and fund public projects when we feel like the money is being well spent and is properly directed. And what, from my perspective, I am observing is I am observing the same people who willfully conspired to neglect that facility and to demolish it by neglect are now being handed another $30 million to have to go around again. And I think that is really the concise objection for most of the people who we may not have articulated that correctly, but that's what we're sharing with you. And I think in another 10 years, we'll be here having the same discussion. And this happens not only with housing projects, it happens with public schools, and there are all kinds of reasons why public buildings sometimes don't get maintained. And I realize it's late tonight, and I won't bore you with that. But so we all support public housing. We think it's great. And I will also tell you that the comment that the same 40 people who live there today will live there after this building gets built, I'm willing to bet any amount of money that 90% of those people never see the inside of that building. And the reason I know that is because it's changing from senior housing and veteran housing to low-income housing, and all those people will not qualify and will not be placed back here.
Wrong.
And we've been to those hearings and we've heard it. And my last comment would be that we voted tonight on issues and information that seem to be conflicting from the two people who were sitting here at the table about the length of the abatement and who the abatement was for, whether it was for the Brantford Housing Authority or whether it was for the leasee people who were taking it afterwards. And my concern is that the Brantford Housing Authority in the last 6 years has been to the Freedom of Information Commission on multiple occasions where they've lost because they have not provided it. I, as a citizen in town, think it's fair that we should be able to ask to see these kinds of information in writing so we can look at it and have the same comprehensive level of understanding that you would want to have before you make a vote. And I didn't see the written presentation tonight. I didn't see the numbers or the facts on the piece of paper. And I'm sort of concerned about what we actually voted on and what it really is. At the end, it will be somebody's memory of somebody who wrote it down as it went, as opposed to a written document that everybody had a chance to really thoroughly read. And so I'm suggesting, as part of all of us here in the community, that when these kinds of things come before us again to consider in the future, that we ask for the written documents in our hand to look at so we know exactly what we're voting on before we vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the RTM? Mr. Riccio?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just to follow up with Mr. Jerome's comments, I would encourage you, Mr. Jerome, I would encourage you, Mr. Jerome, if other parents or citizens feel as strongly as you do, that they reach out to their RTM representative as we start preparing for the budget process that starts next week.
And that's great, Mr. Riccio, and thank you for that suggestion. I will tell you that there are a lot of people that fall into one of two categories on that end. One is that they're scared to do so. The second, and larger probably, is the fact that many people do not feel that they can go to somebody and get meaningful action specifically on this issue. But your suggestion is a good one, and I thank you for making it. I just wanted to kind of put some words around that, if I may.
Okay. Anyone else from the?
Just a brief comment on that. There's very little independently that the RTM can do about something like that. And if people don't feel comfortable going to talk to the Board of Ed, my suggestion is to go to the Board of Selectmen and have people speak there, because the town interest is overarching the two bodies. But it's very, very little that we can do independently to engender that.
I appreciate that, and
All
let me
right,
just say
Mr. Giroli, we're not going to get into debating on this issue. Your comments are well taken, and we understand that. Okay. Anyone else from the RTM wishing to? Any other business come before the RTM? If not, Representative Torelli, motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Brantford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BrantfordTV.org.